because we are unable to complete actual observations or spend time directly working with children that, aren't in our classrooms, myself and the chair of our department, we wrote a grant last year to obtain some technology to do some virtual classroom experiences. So essentially what our classroom experience is going to look like is it's almost going to look like a video game. But because we are going to have some scenarios that are based on young children, you guys are going to be working with they're called avatars that are children. So you'll work with a child that is 3 or a child that is 4 or a child that is 5. And there is a scenario that's going to happen that you guys are going to live on Zoom have to plan out, like talk about how you would handle this, like pretend like you're the actual teacher working with this child and how would you handle this situation. So it's really important that, as a teacher, as an educator, that you guys are completing developmental screenings and assessments on young children to ensure that they are hitting their developmental milestones and that they're learning what they are supposed to be learning. So these particular scenarios that we're going to be working with for this experience are based on that. So if you look here, there are 3 separate scenarios and you guys are going to be assigned one at random when we get into our classroom experience. So not everybody is going to be live on Zoom at the same time. There's going to be like a certain amount of you guys will be live and you'll observe other students completing this while other people might not be let into the Zoom room yet. And then we'll like switch, if that makes sense. So like, for example, at 6 o'clock, like 6 of you will be let into the room and then 2 of you are going to get this scenario about Judah, the 3-year-old. 2 of you are going to get this scenario about Eviana, the 4-year-old, and then 2 of you are going to get this scenario about Jacob, the 5-year-old. So what I need you guys to do is to go ahead and spend some time reading through these scenarios. And I want you to start like problem solving within your head based on what you know about children and based on, developmentally appropriate practices about respectful caregiving and teaching. How would you get children to comply? How would you get children to participate in these screenings? And so here before, I'm going to come back to this, but I'm going to show you guys, I actually have the screening tools available for you as well. So not only do I want you guys to spend some time going over these scenarios, but I want you to spend some time looking at these different screenings. So for example, if you're assigned the 3-year-old, you need to have open on your computer and have some working information about what they're looking for in this developmental screening, because we're trying to assess like what is happening in his growth and development. How do we know this? And when we're asking him to do things, how do we get him to comply? So for example, like let's say you're working with a child who learns best through hands-on exploration. And we're trying to find out if he is able to count. Now, we're not going to like drill him, right? Like as a teacher or educator, we know that this child learns best through hands-on exploration. So we're going to give him tools and materials that he can manipulate with his fingers to show us that he can count. We're going to count with him. We're going to do it during like real life experiences and opportunities, for example, like counting our steps. Like we know that that's the best way that we can ensure that those milestones are being met, and that within these screenings that is happening. All right, so let me go back to this first one. So like I said, you guys are going to have these at random. I don't know who's going to be assigned what until it happens. So I'm going to be on the Zoom call with you guys. So it'll be like the first 6 people who go, myself, and then it'll be our avatar who is going to be a child. So let's say you're assigned Judah. So Judah is a 3-year-old boy who has no siblings. He lives with his mom and his maternal grandmother and does not have any other children in his family. He's a very spirited child that needs a lot of redirection as well as choices. He enjoys gross motor activity and hands-on exploration. You do not have any major concerns in his development, but you want to make sure his social and emotional skills are where they should be. Whenever you try to administer this screening, Judah wants nothing to do with this. So let's say that you are given this scenario and you see that we're talking about his social and emotional skills. If you are assigned this, and it's okay for you guys to like take a minute to like open up the screening, just take a second, become familiar with that developmental milestone, you are going to need to make sure you're looking at the part over here. So hold on, let me go right here. It says like the developmental screening. There is a section on here that talks about social emotional development. So when you guys are looking through these screenings, you're going to see that it's broken down by like developmental domain and some of those skills. So go over here to like that personal and social, right? Like what do we notice about him? Is he able to um, feed themselves? Is this child getting themselves dressed? Are they able to take turns? Are there things like that? Like, are they able to do that? And are they able to communicate? Are they able to play well with others? So if Judah is not complying, like he's not willing to share, like you could maybe like pretend like you're trying to get him to share with a peer and say things like, "Oh, look at you have like 2 trucks. Let's see if Joseph would want to play with those 2 trucks." And then he's like, "No, no, 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 no," which the avatar might say that, "No, no, no, I don't want to share." You might say something like, "Well, why don't we try taking turns? First you play with this and then you make up this game and then we can see if Joseph can do the next one." Let's see, and it's a hands-on exploration. He's like involved in that. He actually physically has to hand those toys off. We know that about him. So that might be like the situation that you would be looking at. So make sure that you're familiar with the social emotional part of the 3-year-old developmental screening. And now let's over here and look at the 4-year-old. Oops, hold on. Let me go to the scenario first. All right, so this next one is Eviana is a 4-year-old girl who has 2 older brothers. She lives with her mom, her dad, and her paternal grandmother. You notice that Eviana is struggling with following directions that have more than 2 steps. She does not advocate for herself when peers take toys from her and is struggling with using her language to communicate. She often yells, cries, or points to communicate her wants and needs. She does not recognize any letters, can only count to 5, and knows 3 colors. When the teacher addressed the concerns with the family, they said it's because her older brothers do everything for her. So when we're thinking about like trying to get Aviana to like be able to do more things, and we know that she needs to be counting higher. We know that she needs to be able to follow like 3-step directions. How are we going to work on that? What would be happening within that scenario that you would as a teacher get her to do that? So here, let me pull this up. Oops, sorry. I'm just gonna scroll a little bit down here. Oops, hold on. Up here we go. So for example, like right in here in the communication pieces, which is what we're looking at, like how are we going to give her some directions that might like help her to be able to follow these next 3 steps? So you can take these examples directly from here. You can clap your hands, walk to the door, sit down, but you might want to make a game out of it. Maybe say something like, if you're happy, like if you're happy and you know it, clap your hands, jump up and down and sit down. Like that could be a way to get her to feel more involved and engaged and to follow these different types of steps. Now, let me just tell you guys this too. When you guys are doing these classroom experiences, like remember I said that we just wrote this grant within this last year. So this is still a really new experience for us. I do not want you guys to feel nervous. Like you guys are not going to be at all graded on what is happening during this virtual experience. I am only going to be giving you a grade based on your reflection. So you're going to write a reflection afterwards about like what you think you could have done differently. How could you have handled that scenario with the avatar? And you're also going to do a reflection on what like the classmates are doing with their scenarios. So please, as much as I know it sounds very strange, and it's not always the easiest to explain, especially when I don't have you guys in front of me, on how this is actually going to work and it's going to look. But once you're in it, you will understand. You will understand. It'll make way more sense to you. But don't worry again. Like on the Zoom, the actual Zoom experience with the avatar, you're not being graded on that. So what's going to happen is you're going to have like 1 minute or 2 minutes with the like avatar with the child to like you get them to comply to do what you want them to do to master these tasks, and at the end it'll just be done with, and then I'll talk with you about like, okay, let's talk about how that went. What did you think were the strengths? What did you think were some of the weaknesses? And then I can give you some feedback as well. So I don't please do not feel nervous about this overall experience. Your grade is just coming from the reflection. Okay. Oops, I'm in the wrong one. There we go. And let me pull up this last scenario. So remember, it's gonna be at random. You're gonna have one of these children. So this last one is Jacob, who is a 5-year-old boy who has one younger brother and one older sister. He lives with his mom and dad in a rural community. His parents have expressed some concerns with his language, his problem solving, and his gross motor development. Although he does seem to have difficulty pronouncing some consonant sounds, he can be mostly understood. He knows his first name, age, and where he lives. He can describe how to wash his hands and brush his teeth. He views himself as not being good at catching or copying. While he's not able to balance on one foot for 5 seconds, he can jump with both feet, hop on one foot, throw a ball overhand, and catch a large ball. His fine motor skills are mostly on target, and he can copy shapes, unbutton, draw a person with a head, body, arms, and legs, and can cut on a line. Jacob used good problem solving skills when he identified which block was the smallest. He counted correctly to 12, knows the names of numbers 3, 1, 2, and can name more than 5 colors correctly. He can sustain tension long enough to complete tasks. He advocates for himself and demonstrates self concept. He complies with most things that the teachers asks. So when you guys are going back and looking at this screening tool, and remember I said you have to have these screenings opened while you have these assessments because you're trying to get them to complete some of these tasks on here. So you're going to ask him to complete some of those things, like show me how you do this. What can you tell me what color that is? Well, look at these blocks. Like you're going to ask him to do these things. You're going to say things like, um, when you ask these questions, like, is a car is big, but a bus is what? And you want him to say bigger. Like use the examples from here. Like so when you guys are introducing this to the avatar child, first I want you to say something like like, oh, so and so. So if you have um this particular child or you have Eviana, you might say something like, hold on, let me go back to here. I'm gonna pull these scenarios up. You might say something like, "Oh, Eviana, I have some things that I want you to show me all the things that you can do. Would you like me to sit over here with you and for you to show me these tasks, or would you like to sit at a table? Like the first thing I want you guys to do when you sit down with this avatar is let them know what you're doing. Let them know that you're doing a screening without telling a child you're doing a screening, but inviting them to these activities. Like for example, when we're looking at like Judah, and we're trying to work on his social emotional skills. We're trying to work on getting him to follow directions. Like we might need to say something to Judah, like, "All right, Judah, in 1 minute, we're gonna go do this black activity because I want you to show me how you can do this. Like I want you guys to actually introduce it to to the child. Okay. Now, please, please, please send me any questions that you guys might have. And like I said, don't worry about what's happening with these avatars. You will see them on the screen, like it'll be in a Zoom call and it will be like in a classroom setting with small children and you're pretending like you're the teacher. So what I don't want you guys to do is like don't stop and like ask me questions. Just you're going to say something or ask a child to do something and they're going to respond. Either they're going to do it, or if you have Judah who doesn't want to comply, he's not going to do it. And you have to figure out a different way to get him to do that. Okay. Now, if you have any questions, feel free to send me a message or send me an email. Also,